They're like, we're gonna be a little bit philosophical over here, just a little bit, and then we're gonna go over here and be action, and we're gonna come over here and be a little bit etchy because it's anime, and then we're gonna be over here and do a little tiny bit of comedy. Speaking of Amazon Prime, the first show we're gonna be talking about is Beatless.
One I wanted to watch.
So,
How'd this one go?
yes. So this was. I'm still on the fence about it. Because I think when we talked about it on our upcoming episode, we were debating whether it's going to be a like an action show, a comedy show, or if it's going to be like serious and dealing with like the soul inside of an android and stuff like that. They danced across that the entire episode. They're like, we're gonna be a little bit philosophical over here, just a little bit, and then we're gonna go over here and be action, and we're gonna come over here and be a little bit etchy because it's anime, and then we're gonna be over here and do a little tiny bit of comedy. And then there were some parts that were actually like kind of scary. So it's always scary when like an android gets like damaged, and like let's say what was it like let's say Terminator, when the liquid Terminator 2, when the liquid Terminator came after the person and like it got hit by something, like his head's like over here and like he's still coming after you all weird. Like something similar happens to that in Beatless, and it was like really creepy. And the main character is a dummy, cuz I'm like, "Run! Why are you still standing there? She's a robot. She's gonna kill you. Run!" And he's like, "Are you okay, Mrs. So-and-so?" And I'm like, "Dude!" So,
see, that sort of mindset I feel like comes from like the horror genre, where they notice that they walk up to the front door and see it like partially open when it wasn't supposed to be. So what do? They come walking in going, "Hello? Hello, is anybody there?" I'm like, why? If they're there, they're gonna kill you probably, because even if they didn't intend to, now you saw them, or you're going to see them.
yeah.
Just get the hell out of there. Yeah, see, now already I'm like, oh, that would just annoy the hell out of me.
Yeah, so that's the part of the main character that kind of annoyed me. The good part of the main character is how they explain his story, where there's some people who hate the androids and some people who are like indifferent. They're just a being just like me, and it's like, not really, but I could see what you're talking about. There is a scene where I got kind of upset at his friends, and it kind of is telling me that this story is going to be kind of shallow, or at least at the beginning it's going to be shallow. He was walking with some of his friends, and they were kind of like, they walked past this shop, and like there's this android there who's like serving food and stuff like that, and she's like, "Oh, welcome, like eat a shot," all that kind of stuff. And he's like, "Oh, okay, how you doing?" And like, they walk past and they look at him, and they're like, "Why do you keep like talking to the androids like they're people?" And he's like, "Well, it's like I can see like how he seems like he seems like he thinks they're a real person, and he acts like they're a real person, and everybody else is kind of like, oh, it's just a robot, let's just go." It's like they're treat like it's a robot at a store, so it's a vending machine. They're like, I'm not gonna go talk to a vending machine.
Yeah,
like,
they treat it like an object instead of an actual person.
yeah, so I get that. Then they walked over to a corner, and there was this android helping this older lady across the street. And one thing that was weird is like there was the cars are automated too, and there was this car like about to turn the corner, but the lady and the android were trying to cross, and the car is kind of like, just like not sitting still. It's like trying, like I feel like the car is just sitting there like recalculating because there's like an obstacle, and it was kind of just like moving. I'm like, what is this car doing? And then the main character goes over and he's like, "Oh, let me help you," and he helps the android help this old lady across the street. And as he's running over there, the dude's like, "It's just an android. What are you doing? Why are you helping?" And in my head, I'm like,
There's an old lady.
"There's an old lady there." Exactly. I'm like, he's helping the android get the old lady across the street quicker. And I'm like, they didn't acknowledge the old lady at all. So I'm like, I'm not really like that's kind of like
Well, that to me feels like kind of a disassociation where your mind just becomes so numb. You know, it's like violence in our world right now. If you
mm,
think about back in like, let's say 1950s, 1960s, or something like that.
mm,
If you took somebody from back then and took them to now and showed them, say, like
almost
Atlanta or Los Angeles or something like that, I mean, it would be such a culture shock. It would just be something you're just like looking at it going, "Oh my God, what is this? Why? Why do people do that? Why are there people sitting there like that? Why are, there'd be so many questions." But
why
for
is everybody
us,
looking at their phones?
yeah, but for us, it's normal.
Yeah.
We don't even think about it. We don't take it for granted. We take it for granted, and we're just, we disassociate ourselves with it. So I can kind of see where that comes from with them, where if it's just an old lady crossing the street with a robot, they see the robot and immediately shut down everything else.
Yeah.
It doesn't even register. It's like, oh, it's a robot, whatever. I'm just gonna
Hmm.
deal, whatever.
Yeah.
So, and it kind of reminds me of an older anime that I watched. It's an anime movie years and years ago. Do you remember Armitage?
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I haven't seen it,
Yeah,
but I know of it.
yeah. And that had a lot of that same sort of very much people on the fence in that regards of, are they human? Even they kind of act like it, or are
Hmm.
they kind of more of just the android robot since they are,
Yeah.
and then there was a big hullabaloo when they found out somebody was tweaking with them, and then an actual they could give birth, and it was, yeah, it became a
Wow.
huge ordeal. But that was the main focus of that, simply
Oh.
because it was, once the androids became able to give birth, then they became scared of, well, now they're more human.
Yeah.
That was the one thing that separated us, is they couldn't do that. Now they can, and then it just became huge thing.
Okay.
So I kind of see where this one's going, even though I haven't watched it. Just from what
Hmm.
you've described,
Yeah.
there's probably going to be a really big conflict in regards to whether or not they're considered human. So it's kind of an
Right.
old story. I'm just curious how well they tell it in their own way.
Yeah. There's
So,
there are a few moments like that even I kind of fall into that like oh it's a person kind of thing is because after he helps the old lady and goes back and talks with his friends, the android comes back and like thanks him for helping the old lady cross the street, and it was kind of weird because I had like, even though it had been only like a couple minutes, I was like already engaged in a separate conversation, and then she kind of interrupted me like, "Oh, thank you," and then she like bowed and then walked away, and I'm like, that's some really really good programming. I'm like, that made me feel good. I'm like, that's kind of cool, and
but see, here's the thing. The bad thing about that is that, do you think, had that been a human helping an old lady across the street, would they have thanked? Would they have come back and thanked them? Because there's a possibility that wouldn't have happened.
yeah,
There's a
yeah,
strong possibility that wouldn't have happened.
yeah,
Yet the android took that opportunity and said, "Oh, I'm going to go back and make sure to thank them for helping me with that."
yeah,
You know. So where do you draw the line? Where's the dividing marker here? Is
yeah.
is one more better than the other? I mean, so
Hmm.
I've always found those to be interesting, at least depending upon how they approach them.
Okay.
So,
So, I would say the last thing without spoiling anything is there's a whole completely different side of the story going on, which is the action part. Basically, there's a bunch of prototype androids that have like broken out of the facility, and they're like causing all kinds of havoc. And one of them, or a new mysterious one, helps the main character,
uh,
and it seems like them two are going to be going against the other four or five androids, and that's where all the action comes in.
so
So,
the ones that decided that the androids are bad, or just they need to be treated like objects instead of like people, kind of thing.
well, no, those are just his human friends. Those are just
Okay.
two guys he goes to class with. The basically the military is fighting some escapee androids that were like prototyped with like weapons and all that kind of stuff.
Weapon grade kind of. Okay,
Yeah,
I guess I see
yeah.
what you're saying.
Yeah, so all of that, and that's probably where the hatred comes from, is because they keep like experimenting with all these things, and like all these like disasters happen, and people die, and then the resentment grows. So I can see where all of that comes from just from the first episode. It's just my thing is I really like how the beginning they kind of warmed you up saying like all these different interactions, and then towards the end of the episode they're like, okay, now here's the action, and I'm curious like, is it still going to be that balance throughout the whole series, or is it just going to be like the crazy action stuff that was at the
I
end?
mean, they can. It's just
Yeah.
as long as they do it well.
Yeah, so I'm 100% on the fence because it was half really interesting stuff and then half like kind of interesting stuff. So I'm like, I don't know. So.
Well, I'll definitely be able to at least check this one out when I know it's on Prime, or at least so at least be able to find out. It sounds more intriguing to me than anything else, and
Okay.
it has been a while since I've seen at least a goodly done one that has that sort of question about what is humanity and how do you define it kind of thing.
Okay. Cool. I really hope that they still like are getting more licenses because it's good to have these big companies in the industry. So
I don't know about that.
and she's like, "Oh, darling," and they're all like, "Ah," and I'm like, "Wow."
Yeah.
I'm